and welcome back to the David67 Celtic News YouTube channel. This Saturday afternoon video is going to be a preview of tomorrow afternoon's important Scottish Premiership game against Motherwell, a game where Celtic need to get back on track, get back to their good form, boost their confidence and team spirit, and cheer up the fans leading into the international break, where hopefully Rodgers and the players and the coaches can do a reboot or a restart and get Celtic back to their best, starting with the game against Dundee straight after the international break is over. So in today's video, previewing the Motherwell game tomorrow afternoon, we'll be having a look at my predicted lineup that Rodgers is likely to go with, my own thoughts regarding an alternative that might well get Celtic more chances, better passing and more goals. We look at some stats for Celtic and Motherwell games and one or two wee thoughts regarding the game against Braga on Thursday, and also one or two wee updates on Celtic players playing for other clubs. Celtic take on Motherwell tomorrow afternoon. It's going to be a 3 o'clock kickoff at Celtic Park. Game, unfortunately, is not live on television in the United Kingdom or Ireland. There will be highlights later on Celtic TV and obviously highlights on BBC Scotland Sports Scene and BBC iPlayer later in the day. No press conference on Friday or Saturday from Brendan Rodgers, and so one or two wee doubts regarding possible injuries and fitness issues for players from the video I watched of Celtic training. Couldn't see Kieran Tierney training, but that doesn't necessarily mean that he's not fit for training, nor was Kasper Schmeichel seen in the training footage that Celtic FC released on their official channel. However, this is the lineup I think Brendan Rodgers is likely to go with. I think he's going to persist with Kasper Schmeichel in goals, even though Schmeichel obviously had a rather poor game against Braga. I think he will restore Ralston to right back, keep going with Carter Vickers and Liam Scales as the centre backs, however bringing in Marcello Saracchi to left back to give Kieran Tierney a break. I think he'll go with Callum McGregor in the deeper role, Rio Hatate and Luke McCowan in front of them, Daizen Maida again on the right, Sebastian Chuniecki on the left, and Kelechi Iheanacho through the middle. Just one or two wee stats regarding Kasper Schmeichel's recent performances. So far this season, 8 games, 4 goals conceded, 5 clean sheets. He's had 19 shots on target to save, with a 78.9% save percentage. So is doing a pretty decent job, 5 clean sheets out of 8, and conceding just 4 goals so far this season. However, I do think it would be worthwhile giving Schmeichel the Motherwell game off, bringing in Viljami Sinisalo. That gives Kasper Schmeichel a few days to reflect on the Braga game, going off then on international duty with Denmark, and then back to Lennoxtown before the Dundee match with a few games for a couple of games for Denmark and a couple of days back at Celtic Park and Lennoxtown for training, and hopefully gets him back to his best of form. So my own suggestion regarding an alternative lineup for the game against Motherwell tomorrow would be Sinisalo in goals, back 4 of Colby Donovan, Dane Murray, Austin Trusty and Marcello Saracchi. Midfield of Rio Hatate and Callum McGregor playing a box-to-box midfielder type role. Then Benjamin Nigrian as a free role attacking midfielder in front of them, with Daizen Maida playing as a second striker behind Kelechi Iheanacho with Sebastian Chuniecki. I think the flexibility of this allows the 2 fullbacks to play as wing backs and inverted fullbacks, pushing into midfield and then into the final third, providing us with a lot of width. It allows Negri to swap to right wing, left wing, through the middle, and also similarly allows Sebastian Tunecki a little bit of leeway to cut into the box more often, and then allows also Kelechi Iheanacho to play as a more target man centre forward, linking up the play, holding up the ball, bringing in the wide players and the midfielders, and then Dyson Maida acting as a more inside forward, second striker off him, kind of like the partnership between Chris Sutton and John Hartson, along with Henrik Larsson in the glory days of the early 2000s. I think Celtic certainly need to get much better passing coming out of their back four. Carter Vickers and Scales have been very poor with their passing. Murray and Trusty are much, much better passers. I think their defensive skills are just as good. Ralston and Sriracha can play that inverted fullback role and the wing-back role. And it also means that Celtic will have two players, McGregor and Hatate, dropping back that bit deeper, pushing forward and supporting the attack, but also coming back. If Celtic are on the defence or having to defend a counter-attack, it does mean that Celtic have that more flexibility and banks of six in attack and banks of six in defence. And I think it also means Celtic do have other options for breaking through a low block, more attacking players in the box, more options to pass across to, and also more players who can make runs to clear space from the defenders, who rather than having just one person to mark will have three or four different players to try to defend against. I think the struggle with Brendan Rodgers' current tactics is all very, very predictable. All is exactly how he's always set up Celtic. And it tends to mean that Celtic just have one player in the box and sometimes two or three if the ball's coming in from wide. But one of the reasons I think Celtic are struggling to break down the low block is lack of overloads out wide and a lack of overloads in the box. Now, in terms of a predicted score for tomorrow's game against Motherwell tomorrow afternoon at Celtic Park, I'm going to go for a nice 3-0 win for Celtic. I think Celtic are defending well at the moment, apart from obviously a couple of blips against Braga. And I think Celtic will get back into scoring form one way or another, especially if they do adopt a more quick passing, quick thinking, more on the front foot style of play. Now, a few wee stats regarding Celtic against Motherwell. Over the years, in all competitions, Celtic have 82 wins, 21 draws, and 12 losses in all competitions against Motherwell in history. Celtic are unbeaten against Motherwell in the last 34 games, with 29 wins and 5 draws over that time. Celtic last lost to Motherwell in December of 2015. In terms of Celtic against Motherwell at Celtic Park, Celtic have 14 wins and 2 draws in the last 16. Motherwell have actually started the season well. They are unbeaten so far in 6 Scottish Premiership games, with 1 win and 5 draws in that time, and they actually currently lie 4th in the table, whilst we lie 2nd in the table. And looking at Celtic getting back into action after a midweek European game, Celtic have only lost 1 time in the last 44 times they've come back from a midweek European match. Over that time, 38 wins, 5 draws, and that 1 defeat was against Hearts in December 2023. That was that 2-0 loss at Celtic Park, which was a rather dreary, drab day where Celtic missed a lot of chances and didn't defend that well at spells in the first half. One or two wee thoughts regarding the Braga match. I thought one of the best players on the pitch was Gustav Lagerbielke. I think he defended exceedingly well. He was part of Braga's second goal. He did a great job in central defence, did a great job covering across to the right back zone to snuff out Sebastian Ciuniecki, and was a bit of a threat in both boxes in terms of his aerial ability. And I think maybe Brendan Rodgers might well be regretting getting rid of him, although knowing Rodgers' personality, probably still thinks he was right and still thinks that Gustav Lagerbielke isn't of the class to play for Celtic. I think his performance for Braga on Thursday and his performances for Braga so far this season and 20 Enschede last season in Holland really do show that Celtic have lost a good young defender who was likely to get better and better, and he has got better and better away from Celtic on loan. Another player who's doing much the same is Luis Palma, playing for Lech Poznan in Poland. He had an apparently brilliant game in Lech Poznan's 4-1 win over Rapid Vienna in Europe this week, scored a goal and created a goal, and it does look like Lech Poznan are very, very keen to sign him at the end of the season. Celtic have a loan deal with a purchase clause at the end, and Luis Palma having switched roles in the Lech Poznan team, playing much more centrally, kind of as a second striker, attacking midfielder role, has really come into his own and is thought to be one of the best players in the Polish league at the moment. In the same game, he of course was up against Marco Tilio, playing for Rapid Vienna. Tilio didn't have a great game for Rapid Vienna, but no one particularly did for Rapid Vienna. And so far this season for Rapid Vienna, he's had a couple of man-of-the-match performances for them, and a lot of decent performances, getting the high sixes and low sevens in terms of his match ratings. And could well be another player that Celtic regret losing. He, of course, was supposed to go on loan, but he then got transferred permanently to Rapid Vienna. And given the fact that Celtic are struggling for creativity down the right-hand side, Marco Tilio, with the way that he played in Australian football at the start of this year and the way that he's playing in Austrian football at the moment, could well have been a very, very handy player to have as a starter, or at least coming off the bench with his extra pace. Another interesting stat I picked up on in the post-match reviews of the game against Braga on Thursday is that Celtic, since the game against Bayern Munich, where we drew 1-1 over in Germany and narrowly missed knocking them out of the knockout phase, since that time Celtic have played 27 games in all competitions in terms of competitive games. Over that time, Celtic have won 15 of those 27 games, with 4 defeats and 8 draws, although 2 of those 8 draws actually turned into defeats after penalty shootouts against Aberdeen and Kairat Almaty in that second qualifier. And so it does kind of show that Celtic have been a bit off form ever since the end of January 2025. They've had a pretty poor 8 months or so since that time. And whilst for many teams, winning 15 and drawing 8 out of 27 games would be a good record, in terms of Celtic, that's not good enough, and does kind of show that the Celtic form has been a bit of a dip ever since the end of the Champions League campaign earlier in 2025. Hopefully, Brendan Rodgers, the players, the coaches, etc., can get it turned around, both with a good win tomorrow against Motherwell and then a good session or several sessions of training between now and the next game against Dundee, whilst half the squad are away on international duty. So that finishes things off for today's video. Just a wee polite suggestion, encouragement. If you are new to the channel, please do click that subscriber button. Keep the numbers pushing up through the 1400s, and do pop your own thoughts regarding the predicted score, the lineup, any other Celtic issues into the comment section. And so to the next video, which will be likely a post-match review of the Motherwell match early on Monday. Goodbye, good luck Celtic in beating Motherwell tomorrow, and hail, hail.